Have you ever wondered what it feels like when everything goes wrong in a single moment? Imagine being trapped somewhere dark and scary with no way out. That is exactly what happened to Sarah Mitchell on a cold Tuesday evening in November. She never thought her regular day would turn into the most terrifying experience of her entire life. Sarah was a veterinarian who loved animals more than anything else in the world. She worked at a small animal clinic in the quiet town of Riverside. Every morning she woke up excited to go to work because she knew she would be helping puppies, kittens, rabbits, and all sorts of creatures feel better. Her favorite part of the job was seeing the happy faces of pet owners when their furry friends got healthy again. Sarah had long brown hair that she always tied in a ponytail, bright green eyes that sparkled when she smiled, and a kind heart that made everyone around her feel safe and comfortable. On that particular Tuesday, Sarah was finishing up her last appointment of the day. She had just given a golden retriever puppy named Max his vaccination shots. Max was adorable with his fluffy fur and wagging tail. His owner, a little girl named Emma, hugged Sarah and thanked her for being so gentle with Max. Sarah waved goodbye to them and started cleaning up her examination room. She wiped down the metal table, organized her medical tools, and threw away the used supplies. The clinic was quiet now because all the other workers had already gone home for the evening. But wait, do you know what Sarah heard just as she was about to lock the front door? A strange sound came from the alley behind the clinic. It sounded like a dog whimpering and crying. Sarah's heart immediately filled with concern. She could never ignore an animal in distress. That was just who she was. She grabbed her medical bag and a flashlight, then walked out the back door into the dark alley. The alley was narrow and lined with tall brick buildings on both sides. Garbage bins stood against the walls, and the smell was not very pleasant. The sun had already set, and the only light came from a flickering street lamp at the far end of the alley. Sarah turned on her flashlight and followed the sound of the whimpering. Her footsteps echoed on the wet pavement. She called out softly, trying not to scare whatever animal was in trouble. Then she saw him. A beautiful German Shepherd was lying next to one of the garbage bins. The poor dog looked hurt and scared. His fur was dirty and matted, and he had a cut on his front leg that was bleeding. Sarah's heart broke seeing the animal in such bad condition. She slowly approached the dog, speaking in a calm and soothing voice. The German Shepherd looked up at her with big brown eyes that seemed to be begging for help. Sarah knelt down beside the dog and gently examined his injuries. The cut on his leg was not too deep, but it needed to be cleaned and bandaged. She opened her medical bag and started working carefully. The dog seemed to understand that she was trying to help him because he stayed still and let her treat his wound. Sarah smiled and petted his head softly. She decided she would take this brave dog back to the clinic, give him proper treatment, and maybe find him a good home. But here is where things took a terrifying turn. Can you imagine what happened next? Just as Sarah was finishing bandaging the dog's leg, she heard footsteps behind her. Before she could turn around, a rough hand grabbed her shoulder. Sarah gasped and tried to pull away, but another person grabbed her other arm. She looked up and saw 3 men standing around her. They looked mean and dangerous. Their faces were covered with dark masks, and they wore black clothing from head to toe. "What do we have here?" one of the men said in a gruff voice. His breath smelled terrible, like cigarettes and alcohol. Sarah's heart started pounding, so hard she thought it might burst out of her chest. She tried to scream, but another man quickly put his hand over her mouth. The German Shepherd started barking loudly, trying to protect Sarah, but one of the thugs kicked the poor dog. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. She was absolutely terrified. The men dragged Sarah down the alley while she struggled and tried to fight back. The German Shepherd, despite being hurt, followed them while barking and trying to bite the men's legs. The thugs were getting annoyed with the dog, but they were too busy handling Sarah to deal with him properly. They pulled her toward an old abandoned building at the end of the alley. The building looked like it had been empty for many years. The windows were broken, the paint was peeling off the walls, and the whole structure looked like it might fall apart at any moment. One of the men pulled out a set of keys and unlocked a rusty metal door. They dragged Sarah inside while the German Shepherd managed to slip in behind them before they could close the door. Inside, The building was even worse than it looked from the outside. It smelled moldy and damp. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and rats scurried across the floor. Sarah could barely see anything in the darkness, but she could hear water dripping somewhere and the sound of her own frightened breathing. The thugs pulled Sarah down a set of creaky wooden stairs that led to the basement. Each step groaned under their weight, and Sarah worried the stairs might collapse. The basement was pitch black and freezing cold. The men turned on a single light bulb that hung from the ceiling, casting eerie shadows on the concrete walls. The basement was mostly empty except for some old boxes, broken furniture, and what looked like rusty tools scattered around. "Please let me go," Sarah begged, her voice shaking with fear. "I haven't done anything to you. I was just helping a herd dog. Please, I won't tell anyone about this. Just let me go home." The leader of the group, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, laughed cruelly. "Sorry, lady, but you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. We're using this building for our business, and we can't have witnesses walking around. You'll stay here until we figure out what to do with you." What do you think Sarah felt at that moment? Imagine being locked in a dark, cold basement with no way to call for help. Your phone is in your pocket, but when you try to reach for it, one of the men snatches it away and throws it against the wall, smashing it into pieces. That is exactly what happened to Sarah. Her only connection to the outside world was destroyed right in front of her eyes. The thugs tied Sarah's hands behind her back with rough rope that hurt her wrists. They made her sit on the cold concrete floor in the corner of the basement. The German shepherd stayed close to her, growling at the men, but not attacking because he was still weak from his injuries. One of the thugs looked at the dog and said, "What should we do about this mutt?" The leader shrugged. "Leave him. He's hurt anyway. He won't cause us any problems. Let's go upstairs and finish loading the trucks. We need to move that merchandise tonight." The men walked back up the stairs, and Sarah heard the door at the top slammed shut. Then she heard the sound of a heavy lock clicking into place. She was trapped. The single light bulb continued to flicker, making the shadows dance on the walls in a creepy way. Sarah pulled at the ropes around her wrists, but they were too tight. Her hands were already starting to feel numb. The German shepherd limped over to Sarah and laid his head on her lap. Despite everything that was happening, Sarah felt a small bit of comfort from the dog's presence. At least she was not completely alone. She petted the dog's head with her tied hands and whispered, "It's going to be okay, boy. Somehow, we're going to get out of here." But how? Sarah's mind raced trying to think of a way to escape. The basement had no windows. The only way out was through the locked door at the top of the stairs. Even if she could get her hands free, she would have to somehow unlock that door or break it down. And even if she managed that, the three dangerous men were somewhere in the building above. What chance did she have against them? Hours passed slowly. Sarah could hear the men moving around upstairs. She heard heavy objects being dragged across the floor, voices talking in low tones, and occasionally the sound of truck engines outside. She realized these men must be criminals involved in some kind of illegal operation. Maybe they were stealing things or smuggling goods. Whatever they were doing, they clearly did not want any witnesses. Sarah's legs were getting stiff and sore from sitting on the hard floor. She was cold and hungry. Her wrists hurt from the tight ropes. The German shepherd was sleeping next to her, occasionally whimpering in his dreams. Sarah wondered if anyone would notice she was missing. Her parents lived in another state, and she usually only called them on weekends. Her co-workers would notice tomorrow morning when she did not show up for work, but would they think to look for her in an abandoned building? Probably not. Just when Sarah was starting to lose hope, something unexpected happened. Do you want to know what it was? She heard a different kind of sound from upstairs. It was not the thugs moving around or talking. It was a new sound, like someone moving very quietly and carefully. Then she heard a soft thud, followed by a groan, and then silence. Sarah's heart started beating faster. What was happening up there? The German shepherd's ears perked up. He had heard something too. He stood up, his tail wagging slightly, which was strange considering they were locked in a basement. Dogs have much better hearing than humans, so he probably heard something Sarah could not detect yet. A few minutes later, Sarah heard footsteps coming down the stairs. These footsteps were different from the heavy stomping of the thugs. These were light and controlled, like someone who knew how to move silently. Sarah held her breath. Was it one of the thugs coming back? Or was it someone else? The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs, and a figure stepped into the dim light of the basement. Sarah gasped. It was not one of the thugs. It was a man she had never seen before, but he looked like he knew exactly what he was doing. The man was tall and muscular, with short dark hair and intense blue eyes. He wore dark tactical clothing and moved with the confidence of a trained professional. Most importantly, he had a kind expression on his face when he saw Sarah tied up in the corner. He held one finger to his lips, signaling her to stay quiet, and then he quickly moved toward her. "Are you hurt?" he whispered softly as he knelt beside her and started working on the ropes around her wrists. His hands moved quickly and efficiently, and within seconds, Sarah's hands were free. She rubbed her sore wrists and looked at this mysterious stranger with confusion and relief. "Who are you?" Sarah whispered back. "How did you find me?" The man smiled slightly. "My name is Jake Sullivan. I'm a Navy SEAL. Well, I was. I'm retired now, but old habits die hard. I live in the apartment building across the alley. I saw those thugs drag you into this building, and I knew I had to help. I've been watching this place for the past hour, waiting for the right moment to come in." Sarah could not believe her luck. Of all the people who could have witnessed her kidnapping, it was a trained Navy SEAL. Do you know what a Navy SEAL is? They are some of the most highly trained military soldiers in the entire world. They go through incredibly difficult training that most people could never complete. They learn how to fight, how to survive in harsh conditions, how to swim in dangerous waters, how to parachute from airplanes, and how to rescue people from impossible situations. They are basically real-life superheroes. Jake helped Sarah stand up. Her legs were shaky from sitting for so long, but she managed to stay upright. The German Shepherd was wagging his tail and sniffing Jake, seeming to sense that this man was here to help them. Jake petted the dog briefly and then turned his attention back to Sarah. "How many men are there?" Jake asked in a low voice. "3," Sarah replied, still whispering. "They're upstairs doing something with trucks. I think they're criminals moving stolen goods or something illegal." Jake nodded. "I took care of 2 of them already. They won't be bothering anyone for a while. But there's still one more, and he just went outside to the trucks. We need to move quickly and quietly. Can you walk?" Sarah nodded. Her body was sore and stiff, but adrenaline was pumping through her veins now. She was going to escape. Jake led the way toward the stairs, moving silently like a cat. Sarah followed behind him, trying her best to be quiet even though her heart was pounding loudly in her ears. The German Shepherd limped along beside her, staying close. They climbed the creaky stairs slowly and carefully. Each step seemed to make a loud noise, and Sarah worried the remaining thug would hear them. But Jake moved with such skill that he seemed to know exactly where to step to minimize the sound. When they reached the top of the stairs, Jake slowly pushed the door open just a crack and peeked through. Sarah held her breath, waiting. Jake turned back to her and whispered, "The coast is clear for now. The last guy is still outside with the trucks. We're going to go out the front entrance. Stay close to me and move quickly when I say go. Understand?" Sarah nodded again. Jake pushed the door open wider, and they stepped out into the main floor of the abandoned building. Sarah could see 2 of the thugs lying unconscious on the floor. Jake had tied them up with zip ties, and they were not going anywhere. The front entrance was just ahead, and through the broken windows, Sarah could see the street outside. Freedom was so close. They were halfway to the door when disaster struck. Can you guess what happened? The 3rd thug walked back into the building through a side entrance. He saw Jake, Sarah, and the dog immediately. His face twisted with anger, and he reached for something in his jacket. Sarah realized with horror that he was pulling out a gun. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. The thug raised his gun and pointed it at Jake. Sarah screamed. The German Shepherd barked loudly, but Jake was faster than anyone could believe. He moved so quickly that Sarah barely saw what happened. In one fluid motion, Jake kicked a piece of broken wood up from the floor, caught it in his hand, and threw it at the thug like a spear. The wood struck the man's hand, knocking the gun away before he could fire. Then Jake charged forward and tackled the thug to the ground. The two men struggled on the floor, rolling and fighting. The thug was big and strong, but Jake had years of military training. He used special techniques that Sarah had only seen in movies. Within less than a minute, Jake had the thug pinned down and was tying his hands behind his back with another zip tie. The man groaned and cursed, but he could not move. Jake stood up, breathing only slightly harder than normal, and turned to Sarah. "Are you okay?" he asked with concern in his eyes. Sarah nodded, even though her whole body was shaking from the adrenaline and fear. "You saved my life," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you so much. I don't know what would have happened to me if you hadn't been there." Jake smiled warmly. "That's what we do. Or what we did, I guess. Come on, let's get you out of here and call the police." They walked out of the abandoned building into the cool night air. Sarah had never been so happy to be outside. The street was quiet and dark, but it felt like paradise compared to that horrible basement. Jake pulled out his cell phone and called 911, reporting the situation to the police. He explained that 3 criminals had kidnapped a woman and were involved in what appeared to be a smuggling operation. He gave the address of the abandoned building and said the suspects were already restrained and ready for arrest. Within minutes, Sarah heard the beautiful sound of police sirens approaching. Several police cars pulled up to the building with their lights flashing. Officers jumped out and ran inside. Jake briefly explained the situation to the officers, who looked at him with respect when they learned he was a former Navy SEAL. The police found the criminals exactly where Jake had left them, along with several trucks full of stolen electronics and other valuable merchandise. An ambulance arrived shortly after to check on Sarah and the German Shepherd. The paramedics examined Sarah and said she was physically okay, just shaken up and bruised from the ordeal. A veterinarian emergency service was called for the dog, and they said his injuries would heal fine with proper care. Sarah insisted she would take care of the German Shepherd herself at her clinic. After everything they had been through together, she felt a special bond with the brave dog. A police detective named Martinez interviewed Sarah about everything that had happened. She told him how she had been treating the injured dog in the alley when the thugs grabbed her, how they locked her in the basement, and how Jake had rescued her. Detective Martinez wrote everything down carefully and said that her testimony would be important for prosecuting the criminals. "These men are part of a larger theft ring we've been investigating for months," Detective Martinez explained. "They've been stealing electronics from stores and warehouses all over the state. Thanks to you and Mr. Sullivan, we finally caught them red-handed with the stolen goods. You're a hero, ma'am." Sarah did not feel like a hero. She felt exhausted and overwhelmed by everything that had happened, but she was grateful to be alive and safe. She looked over at Jake, who was talking to another police officer. He caught her eye and gave her a reassuring smile. Sarah smiled back, feeling incredibly lucky that such a skilled and brave person had been nearby when she needed help the most. After all the police interviews were finished, Jake walked over to Sarah. The sky was starting to lighten with the first hints of dawn. They had been dealing with police and emergency services for hours. The German Shepherd was resting comfortably in the back of Sarah's car, which the police had retrieved from the clinic parking lot for her. "How are you holding up?" Jake asked gently. "I'm okay, I think," Sarah replied, still processing everything. "I keep thinking about what could have happened if you hadn't been there. Those men could have hurt me or worse. I owe you everything." Jake shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone should do when they see someone in trouble. Although I guess not everyone has SEAL training to help them take down armed criminals." He smiled, trying to lighten the mood. Sarah laughed weakly. "I'm so glad you have that training. Can I ask you something? Why did you retire from the Navy? You seem like you were really good at your job." Jake's expression became more serious. "I served for 12 years and loved every minute of it, but I got injured during a mission overseas. My knee was damaged pretty badly, and after surgery and rehab, the doctor said I could continue serving but recommended I retire. I decided to take their advice. I'd seen and done enough in those 12 years. It was time to come home and try to live a normal life." "Do you miss it?" Sarah asked. "Sometimes," Jake admitted. I miss my team and the sense of purpose, but I'm finding new ways to help people now. I volunteer at the local veteran center. I teach self-defense classes to women and kids, and apparently, I rescue veterinarians from kidnapping situations." He grinned. Sarah laughed again, this time more genuinely. She was starting to feel better now that the immediate danger was over. "Well, I'm extremely glad you chose to live in that apartment building across from my clinic. What are the odds that a Navy SEAL would be right there when I needed one?" "Sometimes life works out in unexpected ways," Jake said thoughtfully. "Hey, I know you've had a traumatic night, but would it be okay if I checked in on you tomorrow? Just to make sure you're doing all right. You've been through a lot, and sometimes the emotional impact hits you later." Sarah felt warmth in her chest at his kindness. "I would really like that, actually. Thank you, Jake, for everything." They exchanged phone numbers, and Jake helped Sarah get into her car safely. The German Shepherd was sleeping peacefully in the back seat, exhausted from his own ordeal. As Sarah drove home with the rising sun painting the sky in beautiful colors of pink and orange, she thought about how quickly life can change. One moment you're just doing your job and helping an injured animal, and the next moment you're fighting for your life in a dark basement. But she also thought about the good things that came from this terrible experience. She had met an incredible person in Jake Sullivan. She had a new furry friend in the German Shepherd, who she decided to name Chance because he had been given a second chance at life. And so had she. And she had learned that she was stronger than she thought. Even in the darkest and scariest moments, she had not given up hope. When Sarah arrived at her small house on the outskirts of Riverside, her neighbor Mrs. Patterson was watering her garden. The elderly woman looked surprised to see Sarah arriving home so early in the morning. "Sarah, dear, are you just getting home? And is that a new dog?" Mrs. Patterson called out with concern in her voice. Sarah did not want to worry her sweet neighbor with the full story, so she just smiled and said, "It's been quite a night, Mrs. Patterson. I rescued this dog and ended up having an adventure. I'll tell you all about it sometime, but right now I really need to sleep." Mrs. Patterson nodded understandingly. "Of course, dear. Get some rest. You look exhausted." Sarah carried Chance into her house. She set up a comfortable bed for him in her living room with soft blankets and pillows. She filled bowls with fresh water and some mild food that would be easy on his stomach. Chance drank some water and ate a little bit, then curled up on the blankets and went back to sleep. Sarah checked his bandages one more time to make sure everything looked okay. Then she went to her own bedroom. She took a long, hot shower that helped wash away some of the stress and fear from the night. The warm water felt wonderful on her sore muscles. After drying off and putting on comfortable pajamas, Sarah collapsed onto her bed. She was so exhausted that she fell asleep almost immediately, despite all the emotions swirling in her mind. Sarah slept for most of the day. When she finally woke up, it was late afternoon. Sunlight was streaming through her bedroom window, and she could hear birds chirping outside. For a moment, she wondered if the whole thing had been a nightmare. But then she felt the soreness in her wrists where the ropes had been, and she remembered everything was real. She got out of bed and went to check on Chance. The German Shepherd was awake and wagging his tail when he saw her. He limped over to her, and Sarah knelt down to pet him and examine his injuries. The cut on his leg looked much better already. Dogs heal remarkably fast when they receive proper care. Sarah's phone rang, making her jump. Her nerves were still on edge from the traumatic experience. She looked at the screen and saw it was Jake calling. A smile spread across her face as she answered. "Hello. Hi, Sarah, it's Jake. I hope I'm not disturbing you. I just wanted to check and see how you're doing today." "I'm doing better, thank you," Sarah replied honestly. "I slept most of the day, which I really needed. Chance is doing well, too. That's what I named the German Shepherd." "Chance is a great name," Jake said warmly. "Listen, I know this might seem forward, but I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner with me tonight. Nothing fancy, just something casual. I thought it might help to talk about what happened with someone who was there, and also to talk about normal things and remember that life goes on." Sarah felt butterflies in her stomach, which was surprising considering everything she had been through. "I would really like that, actually. What time were you thinking?" They made plans for Jake to pick her up at 6 o'clock. Sarah spent the next hour getting ready. She chose a simple but nice outfit of jeans and a soft blue sweater. She dried her hair and put on a little makeup, though she kept it light. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Despite the trauma from last night, there was something different in her eyes. She looked stronger somehow, like she had survived something terrible and come out the other side. At exactly 6 o'clock, Sarah heard a knock on her door. Chance barked once, then wagged his tail as if he remembered Jake's scent. Sarah opened the door to find Jake standing there in casual clothes, holding a small bouquet of flowers. "These are for you," Jake said with a shy smile. "I know it's kind of old-fashioned, but my mom always taught me to bring flowers on a first date. Although I guess this isn't exactly a traditional first date, considering how we met." Sarah laughed and accepted the flowers. They were beautiful, a mix of roses, daisies, and lilies in soft pastel colors. "They're lovely. Thank you. And I think this definitely counts as the most unusual way I've ever met someone I'm going out to dinner with." They drove to a small Italian restaurant on the other side of town. It was cozy and warm, with red checkered tablecloths and candles on each table. The smell of garlic bread and tomato sauce filled the air. They were seated at a quiet table in the corner, which gave them privacy to talk. Over dinner, they talked about many things. Jake told her stories about growing up in Colorado, about joining the military when he was 18, and about some of the incredible places he had been deployed to around the world. He shared funny stories about his SEAL team and the pranks they would play on each other during their downtime. Sarah found herself laughing genuinely, feeling more relaxed than she had expected. Sarah told Jake about her journey to becoming a veterinarian. She had always loved animals since she was a little girl. Her family had dogs, cats, rabbits, hamsters, and even a parrot at various times. She volunteered at animal shelters as a teenager and knew by the time she was in high school that she wanted to dedicate her life to helping animals. She worked hard in college, got accepted to veterinary school, and graduated near the top of her class. Opening her own clinic in Riverside had been a dream come true. "So what happens now with those men who kidnapped you?" Jake asked as they shared a slice of tiramisu for dessert. "Detective Martinez called me this afternoon while I was still half asleep," Sarah said. "He told me they're being charged with kidnapping, assault, possession of stolen property, and a bunch of other crimes. Apparently, they've been running this operation for almost 2 years. They would steal electronics and other valuable items, then store them in abandoned buildings before moving them to buyers in other states. I was just incredibly unlucky to be in the wrong place at the wrong time." Jake nodded seriously. "Actually, I think you were incredibly lucky. You survived, you're safe, and those criminals are going to prison where they belong. Plus, you saved a dog's life and gave him a new home. That's a lot of good outcomes from a bad situation." Sarah smiled. "You're right, and I met you, which is definitely a good thing." She felt herself blushing as she said it. Jake reached across the table and gently took her hand. "I'm really glad I was there, and I'm really glad I get to know you now, under much better circumstances." They talked for another hour over coffee, neither of them wanting the evening to end. Finally, the restaurant staff started cleaning up around them, and they realized they were the last customers there. They apologized to the staff and left, both laughing at how they had lost track of time. Jake drove Sarah home, and they sat in his car outside her house for a while, continuing their conversation. It felt so natural and comfortable, like they had known each other for much longer than just one day. Finally, Sarah said she should probably go check on Chance and get some rest. "Can I see you again?" Jake asked. "Maybe in another day or two, once you've had more time to recover." "I would love that," Sarah replied with a genuine smile. "How about you come to the clinic? I could show you around and introduce you to some of the animals. We have a few long-term residents who are recovering from injuries or waiting for adoption." "That sounds perfect. I'll call you tomorrow and we'll set up a time." Sarah said goodnight and went into her house. Chance greeted her enthusiastically, his tail wagging so hard his whole back end was wiggling. Sarah laughed and petted him, then led him outside to go to the bathroom in her fenced backyard. As she watched the happy dog, sniffing around her garden in the moonlight, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Yes, something terrible had happened to her, but she had survived. And somehow, that terrible experience had brought new and wonderful things into her life. Over the next few weeks, Sarah's life settled into a new normal. The police investigation continued, and she had to give several more statements and testimonies. The 3 criminals were formally charged, and their trial was scheduled for a few months later. Sarah was told she would probably have to testify, but Detective Martinez assured her that the evidence against the men was overwhelming, so the trial should be straightforward. Chance recovered fully from his injuries. His cut healed nicely, and he regained his strength and energy. Sarah officially adopted him and registered him as her dog. She brought him to work at the clinic every day, and he became something of a mascot. Patients loved seeing the friendly German Shepherd when they came in with their own pets. Chance seemed to have a calming effect on nervous animals, and he would often sit quietly next to scared dogs or cats while Sarah examined them. Sarah and Jake continued to see each other regularly. Their relationship grew naturally and steadily. Jake visited the clinic often and even helped out with some of the heavier tasks like moving bags of dog food or repairing things that broke. He taught Sarah some basic self-defense techniques, which helped her feel safer and more confident. Sarah introduced Jake to her parents when they came to visit, and they absolutely loved him. One day, about 3 months after the kidnapping incident, Sarah received a call from Detective Martinez. "Ms. Mitchell, I wanted to update you on the case. All 3 suspects have accepted plea deals. They're pleading guilty to all charges in exchange for reduced sentences. This means you won't have to testify in court after all." Sarah felt a wave of relief. That's wonderful news. How long will they be in prison? The leader is getting 15 years, and the other 2 are getting 10 years each. They'll be locked up for a long time. You don't have to worry about them anymore. After hanging up with Detective Martinez, Sarah immediately called Jake to tell him the news. He was happy for her and suggested they celebrate. That evening, they went back to the same Italian restaurant where they'd had their first date. This time, they sat at the same corner table and ordered many of the same dishes. "I've been thinking about something," Jake said as they waited for their food to arrive. "These past few months with you have been the happiest I've been since leaving the military. You've shown me that there's a lot of good in the world worth protecting, and I realized something important." Sarah felt her heart beating faster. "What did you realize?" Jake smiled and took her hand across the table. "I realized that sometimes the best missions are the ones that find you, not the ones you go looking for. Meeting you, being there when you needed help, and getting to know you these past months, it feels like exactly where I'm supposed to be." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes, but they were happy tears. "I feel the same way. That night was the scariest experience of my life, but it also led me to you. And to Chance. My life is so much richer now." As they enjoyed their dinner together, Sarah thought about how strange and unpredictable life can be. She had been just doing her job, helping an injured animal, when everything went wrong. But because of one person's courage and training, because a retired Navy SEAL happened to be looking out his window at the right moment, she had been saved. And not just saved. She had found love, friendship, and a new member of her family in Chance. Do you want to know what the most important lesson is from Sarah's story? It is that heroes come in all forms, and sometimes they appear exactly when you need them most. Jake had trained for years to become a Navy SEAL, learning skills that most people could never master. He had served his country bravely and sacrificed a lot to keep others safe. And even in retirement, even after his military service ended, he still had that protective instinct and those valuable skills. But here is another important lesson. Sarah was a hero too, in her own way. She did not have military training or combat skills. She was just a regular person with a kind heart who wanted to help an injured animal. Even when she was terrified and trapped, she did not give up hope. She stayed calm enough to think clearly and watch for any opportunity to escape. And after being rescued, she did not let the trauma stop her from living her life. She recovered, moved forward, and even turned the experience into something positive. Chance was also a hero in this story. Even though he was hurt and scared, he stayed by Sarah's side in that dark basement. He tried to protect her from the thugs, even though he was just one dog against three dangerous men. His loyalty and courage were truly remarkable. Many people say that dogs are man's best friend, and Chance proved that saying true. The story of Sarah, Jake, and Chance reminds us of several important things. First, it shows us that we should always be aware of our surroundings and trust our instincts when something feels wrong. Second, it teaches us that learning self-defense and safety skills is valuable for everyone. Third, it demonstrates that helping others, whether they are people or animals, is always the right thing to do, even if it sometimes involves risk. And fourth, it proves that good can come from bad situations if we stay strong and keep hope alive. Let us talk more about what it means to be a Navy SEAL, since Jake's training was so important to this story. Navy SEALs go through some of the hardest training in the entire world. The program is called BUD/S, which stands for Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL Training. It lasts for many months and tests every part of a person's physical and mental strength. One of the most famous parts of SEAL training is called Hell Week. During this week, trainees get almost no sleep, maybe 4 hours total for the entire week. They are constantly exercising, swimming in cold ocean water, running long distances, and completing difficult obstacle courses. Many people quit during Hell Week because it is just too hard, but the ones who make it through prove they have incredible determination and mental toughness. SEALs learn many different skills. They learn how to swim long distances underwater while holding their breath. They learn how to parachute from airplanes, including at night and into water. They learn hand-to-hand combat and how to use many different weapons. They study navigation so they can find their way in unfamiliar territory. They train to stay calm in extremely stressful situations. All of these skills combine to make them some of the most capable soldiers in the world. But perhaps the most important thing SEALs learn is teamwork. They operate in small teams, and every member must trust the others completely. They learn that no one succeeds alone. Everyone depends on their teammates. This lesson about teamwork and looking out for others stays with SEALs even after they retire from military service. That is why Jake still had the instinct to help when he saw Sarah being dragged into that building. Now let us think about Sarah's profession as a veterinarian. This is also a very important job that requires a lot of education and training. To become a veterinarian, a person must first complete a 4-year college degree, usually in biology or animal science. Then they must apply to veterinary school, which is very competitive. Only the best students get accepted. Veterinary school lasts another 4 years and involves both classroom learning and hands-on practice with real animals. Veterinarians must learn about many different types of animals, from tiny hamsters to huge horses. They study animal anatomy, which means learning about all the bones, muscles, and organs in different species. They learn about diseases that affect animals and how to treat them. They practice surgery on training models before eventually performing real operations. They study pharmacology, which means learning about medicines and drugs that can help animals feel better. Being a veterinarian requires both scientific knowledge and compassion. You need to understand the technical medical information, but you also need to truly care about animals and their well-being. Good veterinarians, like Sarah, can stay calm in emergencies and make quick decisions about how to help an animal in distress. They also need to communicate well with pet owners, explaining what is wrong with an animal and what treatment is needed. Sarah's decision to help the injured German Shepherd in the alley shows what kind of person she was. She could have ignored the whimpering sounds and gone home. She could have called animal control and let them handle it. But instead, she personally went to help, bringing her medical bag and flashlight. She was willing to get her hands dirty and spend her own time treating a stray dog that did not belong to anyone. This kindness and dedication is what makes great veterinarians great. Speaking of German Shepherds, let us learn more about this amazing breed of dog. German Shepherds are large dogs that were originally bred in Germany in the late 1800s. They were developed to help shepherds take care of their sheep flocks, which is how they got their name. The breed was created by carefully selecting and breeding dogs that were intelligent, strong, and had good herding instincts. Today, German Shepherds are used for many different purposes. They make excellent police dogs because they are smart, loyal, and can be trained to track criminals or sniff out drugs. They work as military dogs, helping soldiers on missions and detecting dangerous explosives. They serve as service dogs for people with disabilities, guiding blind people or helping those with mobility problems. And of course, they are wonderful family pets for people who have the space and time to properly care for such a large, energetic dog. German Shepherds are known for their loyalty and protective nature. Once they bond with a person or family, they will do anything to keep them safe. This is exactly what Chance did in the basement. Even though he was hurt and scared, he stayed close to Sarah and tried to protect her from the thugs. This protective instinct is deeply ingrained in the breed. These dogs are also incredibly intelligent. In fact, German Shepherds are usually ranked as one of the top 3 smartest dog breeds in the world. They can learn new commands very quickly and remember complex sequences of actions. This intelligence, combined with their loyalty and strength, is why they are so popular for working roles in police and military operations. However, German Shepherds need a lot of exercise and mental stimulation. They cannot just sit around a house all day doing nothing. They need to run, play, and work their brains. This is why they are perfect for someone like Sarah, who could bring Chance to work at the clinic every day. He had a job to do there, greeting patients and helping calm nervous animals. This gave him purpose and kept him happy and healthy. The bond between humans and dogs is truly special and has existed for thousands of years. Scientists believe that dogs were the first animals that humans domesticated, which means the first animals that humans tamed and bred for specific purposes. This relationship might have started as far back as 15,000 years ago, or even earlier. Back in prehistoric times, wolves probably started hanging around human camps to eat the scraps of food that humans threw away. Over time, the wolves that were less afraid of humans and more friendly had an advantage. They got more food. Humans also benefited because these wolves would bark to warn them about dangerous predators or other tribes approaching. Gradually, over many generations, these wolves evolved into the dogs we know today. This long relationship between humans and dogs has created a unique bond. Dogs can understand human emotions and gestures better than almost any other animal. They know when we are sad and try to comfort us. They know when we are happy and celebrate with us. They can follow our pointing gestures, understand many words, and even sense when something is wrong with our health. Some dogs can detect when their owner is about to have a seizure or when their blood sugar is too high or too low. The story of Sarah and Chance is just one example of this ancient bond. Even though Chance was a stray dog who had been hurt and abandoned, he immediately trusted Sarah when she helped him. And Sarah felt responsible for Chance even when she was in terrible danger herself. This mutual care and loyalty is what makes the human-dog relationship so beautiful and enduring. Let us also think about the criminals in this story and why people make bad choices. The 3 thugs who kidnapped Sarah were involved in stealing and selling stolen goods. They chose to break the law for money. This is unfortunately something that happens in the real world. People sometimes make terrible decisions that hurt others. There are many reasons why people turn to crime. Sometimes they grow up in difficult circumstances with not enough money, food, or opportunities for education. Sometimes they fall in with bad influences like gangs or criminal organizations. Sometimes they make one bad choice that leads to another and another, until they are deep in criminal activity. And sometimes, sadly, some people just do not care about right and wrong. They only care about themselves. However, it is important to remember that making bad choices is never an excuse for hurting innocent people. The thugs in this story could have found legal ways to make money. They could have gotten regular jobs. They could have asked for help if they were struggling financially. Instead, they chose to steal from others and even kidnapped Sarah when she accidentally witnessed their operation. These were conscious decisions they made, and they deserved to face consequences for their actions. This is why we have police officers and laws. Society needs rules that everyone follows to keep people safe. When someone breaks these rules and harms others, there must be consequences. In this case, the 3 criminals received prison sentences of 10 to 15 years. This serves 2 purposes. It punishes them for their crimes, and it keeps society safe by removing dangerous people from the streets. Detective Martinez and the other police officers worked hard to investigate the crime and build a strong case against the criminals. Police work is not easy. Officers have to gather evidence, interview witnesses, write detailed reports, and work long hours to solve crimes. They put themselves in danger to protect others. Good police officers, like the ones in this story, are heroes in their own right. The justice system, which includes police, lawyers, judges, and juries, is designed to be fair. It gives accused people a chance to defend themselves and prove their innocence if they did not actually commit a crime. But when the evidence is clear and the person is guilty, the justice system ensures they face appropriate punishment. In Sarah's case, the evidence was overwhelming. The criminals were caught with stolen goods, and Jake had witnessed them holding Sarah captive. They knew they could not win in court, which is why they accepted plea deals. Now let us think about the important topic of personal safety. Sarah's experience teaches us that we should always be aware of our surroundings and take precautions to stay safe. Here are some important safety lessons we can learn from this story. First, always tell someone where you are going and when you expect to be back. If Sarah had told a friend or roommate that she was working late at the clinic, someone might have noticed sooner when she did not come home. They could have called the police earlier. Second, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong or dangerous, it probably is. Sarah's instinct to help the injured dog was kind, but she could have been more cautious about going into a dark alley alone at night. She could have called animal control or asked someone to go with her. Third, keep your phone charged and accessible. Sarah had her phone, but the criminals destroyed it. However, if she had been able to make a quick call or send a quick text message before they grabbed her, help could have arrived sooner. Fourth, take self-defense classes. After her experience, Sarah learned self-defense from Jake. These skills can help you escape from dangerous situations or at least give you confidence to stay calm and think clearly during a crisis. Fifth, be aware of your surroundings. Pay attention to who is around you and what is happening nearby. Notice if someone seems to be following you or watching you. If you feel uncomfortable, go to a public place with other people around. Sixth, park in well-lit areas and walk with confidence. Criminals often target people who seem distracted or vulnerable. Walking with your head up, appearing alert, and staying in lit areas makes you a less appealing target. Seventh, consider carrying safety tools like a whistle, personal alarm, or pepper spray if it is legal in your area. These can help you call for help or defend yourself in an emergency. Eighth, take a trusted friend with you when going to unfamiliar or potentially dangerous places. There is safety in numbers, and having another person with you makes you much less likely to be targeted by criminals. These safety tips are not meant to make you scared of the world. Most people are good, and most places are safe. But being aware and prepared is always smart. Just like we wear seatbelts in cars, not because we expect to crash, but because we want to be protected if something unexpected happens. We should practice good safety habits as a normal part of life. Jake's story also teaches us about the value of skills and training. His military training made him capable of rescuing Sarah and dealing with dangerous criminals. But you do not have to be a Navy SEAL to have useful skills. Everyone can learn things that make them more capable and helpful to others. For example, learning first aid and CPR can help you save someone's life if they have a medical emergency. Taking swimming lessons and learning water safety can prevent drowning accidents. Learning how to change a tire or jumpstart a car can help when someone has vehicle trouble. Even learning to cook well means you can prepare meals for sick friends or family members. The key is to view learning as a lifelong journey. Jake did not stop learning just because he retired from the military. He took those skills and found new ways to use them, like teaching self-defense classes and helping his community. Sarah continued learning about veterinary medicine throughout her career, staying updated on new treatments and techniques. We should all strive to keep learning and developing new abilities throughout our lives. Let us return to the story and think about what happened in the months after the criminal trial. Sarah's clinic became more popular because news about her rescue spread through the town. People admired her dedication to helping the injured dog, even though it led to danger. They respected her courage during the ordeal. Many new clients started bringing their pets to her clinic, and Sarah had to hire an additional veterinarian to help with all the appointments. Jake decided to start his own business teaching self-defense and survival skills. He had been volunteering and teaching free classes, but he realized this could be his new career. He rented a space in a local gym and started offering classes for different groups: women's self-defense, children's safety classes, and even advanced courses for people in security professions. His classes filled up quickly because people knew about his military background and his role in saving Sarah. Chance became something of a local celebrity. The newspaper ran a story about the brave dog who had stayed by Sarah's side in the basement. Children would come to the clinic hoping to meet him. Chance seemed to love the attention, wagging his tail and gently letting kids pet him. Sarah used this as an opportunity to teach children about responsible pet ownership and being kind to animals. One day, about 6 months after the kidnapping, Jake came to Sarah's house with a serious expression on his face. They sat together on her back porch, watching Chance play in the yard with a rope toy. "I have something important to ask you," Jake said, and Sarah could tell he was nervous. Jake, the brave Navy SEAL who had taken down 3 armed criminals, was actually nervous. "These past months with you have been incredible. You make me laugh. You inspire me with your kindness and dedication, and you've shown me what it means to build a life after military service. I can't imagine my future without you in it." Jake got down on one knee and pulled out a small box. Sarah gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Inside the box was a beautiful ring with a simple diamond that sparkled in the afternoon sunlight. "Sarah Mitchell, will you marry me?" Sarah felt tears streaming down her face as she nodded enthusiastically. Yes, of course I will." She threw her arms around Jake, and they hugged tightly. Chance came running over, barking happily and jumping around them as if he understood something wonderful had just happened. They all laughed together, a woman, a man, and a dog who had all found each other in the most unexpected way. They planned a small wedding for the following spring. It was held outdoors at a beautiful park overlooking a lake. Sarah's family came from their home state, and Jake's military buddies traveled from all over the country to celebrate with their former teammate. The clinic staff was there, along with many clients whose pets Sarah had treated. Detective Martinez attended, happy to see such a positive outcome from a case that could have ended tragically. And of course, Chance was there too. He wore a special collar with a bow tie attached, and he walked down the aisle carrying the wedding rings in a small pouch attached to his collar. The guests laughed and clapped when the handsome German shepherd delivered the rings perfectly. It was a beautiful ceremony full of love, joy, and gratitude for second chances. In her wedding vows, Sarah said, "Jake, you saved my life that terrible night, but you've done so much more than that. You've shown me what it means to be brave, to stay calm in difficult situations, and to always help others. You've made me laugh when I was sad, held me when I was scared, and supported my dreams. I promise to be your partner in all things, to love you through good times and challenges, and to always remember how lucky I am that you happened to be looking out your window that night." In his vows, Jake said, "Sarah, from the moment I met you, even in those terrible circumstances, I saw your strength and kindness. You were terrified, but you didn't give up. You cared about an injured dog even when you were in danger yourself. You taught me that being a hero isn't just about combat skills or physical strength. It's about having a good heart and caring about others. I promise to protect you, support you, make you smile every day, and love you with everything I have." There was not a dry eye in the crowd. Even the tough military guys were wiping away tears. After the ceremony, there was a reception with food, music, and dancing. Chance got extra treats from all the guests and seemed to be having the time of his life. It was a perfect day, celebrating not just a marriage, but the beginning of a new chapter for everyone involved. Sarah and Jake bought a house together with a big backyard for Chance. It was close to both Sarah's clinic and Jake's training facility, so they could both easily get to work. They adopted 2 more rescue dogs, a golden retriever named Hope and a beagle mix named Lucky. The 3 dogs became best friends and kept the house lively and full of energy. They also started volunteering together at the local animal shelter. Jake used his construction skills to help repair and improve the shelter facilities, building new kennels and play areas for the dogs. Sarah provided free veterinary care for the shelter animals. Together, they helped many animals find loving homes. It became their shared mission to give back to their community and help creatures who could not help themselves. Jake's self-defense business grew successful. He developed a special program for survivors of violence and trauma, teaching them skills to feel safe and empowered again. Sarah referred some of her clients to his classes, especially women who expressed fear about their safety. Jake never charged these trauma survivors for his classes. He considered it his way of serving and protecting, just like he had done in the military. One evening, almost a year after their wedding, Sarah and Jake were sitting on their back porch watching the sunset. The 3 dogs were lying at their feet, tired from a day of playing. Sarah rested her head on Jake's shoulder. "Do you ever think about that night?" Sarah asked quietly. "The night we met?" Jake wrapped his arm around her. "Sometimes. It was terrifying and dangerous, but it brought us together. I try to focus on the good that came from it rather than the bad that could have happened." "I think about it too," Sarah admitted. "Sometimes I have nightmares about being trapped in that basement. But then I wake up, and you're right there next to me, and Chance is sleeping on the floor nearby, and I remember that I'm safe, that we're safe, and that something beautiful grew from something terrible. That's life, isn't it?" Jake said thoughtfully, "We can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. You responded with courage and hope. The criminals responded with violence and greed, and now they're in prison. We get to be here, together, living a good life and helping others. I'd say we chose the better path." Sarah smiled and squeezed his hand. "I'd say we did too." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple, Sarah thought about how far she had come. A year and a half ago, she had been a single veterinarian living alone, dedicated to her work, but perhaps a bit lonely. Then one act of kindness, helping an injured dog, had led to the scariest experience of her life. But that scary experience had brought her the love of her life, a wonderful dog who was now her beloved pet, and a deeper appreciation for every single day. She had learned that heroes come in unexpected forms. Jake was a hero with his military training and quick action, but in some ways, she had been a hero too, staying strong and not giving up hope even in the darkest moment. And Chance had been a hero, loyal and brave despite his injuries. Even the simple act of Jake looking out his window at the right moment, that small choice to pay attention to his surroundings, had made all the difference. The lessons from Sarah's story are important for everyone to remember. Bad things can happen to good people. That is an unfortunate reality of life. But how we respond to those bad things defines who we are. We can let fear control us, or we can choose to be brave. We can become bitter and angry, or we can find the good that exists alongside the bad. We can give up, or we can keep hope alive. Sarah chose bravery, gratitude, and hope. She could have stopped helping stray animals after her traumatic experience. She could have become fearful and suspicious of everyone. She could have let the kidnapping define the rest of her life in a negative way. Instead, she recovered, learned self-defense to feel more confident, continued her veterinary work, and opened her heart to love. She took a terrible experience and transformed it into something that made her life richer. Jake chose to keep being a protector even after leaving the military. He could have ignored what he saw that night, thinking it was not his problem anymore. He could have called the police and let them handle it, staying safe in his apartment. But his training and his character would not let him stand by while someone was in danger. His choice to act saved Sarah's life and led to his own happiness as well. And what about Chance? That injured German shepherd could have run away when the thugs appeared. He could have hidden somewhere safe and saved himself. But his loyalty to Sarah, even though he had just met her, made him follow her into danger. His presence in that basement provided Sarah with comfort during her scariest moments. His bravery is a reminder that sometimes our greatest strengths come from our ability to care about others, even when it puts us at risk. This story also reminds us about the importance of community and looking out for each other. Jake was not related to Sarah. He did not know her at all. She was simply a neighbor who needed help, and he provided it. In today's world, People sometimes become so focused on their own lives that they do not notice when others need assistance. We walk past homeless people without making eye contact. We hear strange sounds, but tell ourselves it is not our business. We see someone struggling, but assume someone else will help them. Jake's actions challenge us to be more aware and more willing to help. Obviously, not everyone has military training that allows them to safely confront armed criminals. Most people should call the police in such situations rather than trying to be heroes themselves. But there are many smaller ways we can help others every day. We can check on elderly neighbors. We can help someone whose car has broken down. We can donate to shelters and charities. We can volunteer our time and skills. We can simply be kind and attentive to the people around us. Sarah's actions also challenge us to be compassionate toward animals and all living creatures. She did not have to help that injured dog. She could have finished her work and gone home to a comfortable evening. But she heard an animal in pain and could not ignore it. Her compassion led to danger, yes, but it also led to gaining a wonderful companion in Chance. And her ongoing work at the animal shelter has helped countless other animals find safety and homes. The world needs more people like Sarah and Jake. It needs people who care about others, who act when they see injustice or suffering, who use their skills and resources to make things better. It needs people who choose hope over despair, action over inaction, and love over fear. As years passed, Sarah and Jake built a beautiful life together. They had 2 children, a daughter they named Grace and a son they named Ryan. The kids grew up with Chance, Hope, and Lucky, learning from an early age to be gentle and kind with animals. Sarah taught them about different species and how to care for pets properly. Jake taught them to be aware of their surroundings and how to stay safe. Both children heard the story of how their parents met many times as they were growing up. It became a family legend, told around the dinner table or on camping trips. The kids loved hearing about the brave German shepherd who stayed by their mom's side and the heroic Navy SEAL dad who rescued them both. "Tell us again about the basement," little Grace would say, her eyes wide with excitement, and about how Dad knocked the gun out of the bad guy's hand. Ryan would add enthusiastically. Sarah and Jake would exchange glances and smile before retelling the story once more. They always emphasized the important lessons. Be kind to others, stay aware of your surroundings, never give up hope, and remember that good people exist in the world who will help you when you need it most. Chance lived to be 13 years old, which is a good long life for a German shepherd. When he eventually passed away peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by the family who loved him, everyone mourned deeply. They buried him in the backyard under his favorite tree and placed a stone marker that read, "Chance, a loyal friend who brought 2 souls together, forever in our hearts." Even after Chance was gone, his legacy lived on. The family continued to adopt rescue dogs, always having at least 2 or 3 furry companions in their home. Sarah and Jake told their children that adopting rescue animals was important because these creatures deserved second chances at happiness, just like Chance had received. Sarah's veterinary clinic became one of the most respected in the region. She eventually opened a second location and hired several more veterinarians. She was known not just for her medical skills, but for her genuine compassion toward animals and their owners. People would drive from towns far away to have Sarah treat their beloved pets. Jake's self-defense business also thrived. He trained hundreds of people over the years, helping them feel safer and more confident. Many of his students were women who had experienced violence or threats. Jake took special care with these students, understanding their trauma and helping them heal by regaining a sense of control and empowerment. He also worked with local schools to teach children about bullying prevention and personal safety. Together, Sarah and Jake became pillars of their community. They organized fundraisers for the animal shelter. They sponsored youth sports teams. They volunteered at the Veterans Center. They donated to scholarships for students who wanted to study veterinary medicine or enter military service. They lived their lives as examples of kindness, service, and love. One day, when Sarah was in her 50s, a young woman came into her clinic with an injured cat. As Sarah examined the cat, the woman said, "Dr. Sullivan, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Emma. You treated my golden retriever, Max, when I was a little girl. I heard your story about being kidnapped and rescued, and it inspired me to become a veterinarian too. I just graduated from veterinary school, and I was hoping you might have an opening at your clinic. I want to learn from the best." Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes. This was Emma, that sweet little girl who had hugged her all those years ago after Max got his vaccination. Now she was a grown woman, a veterinarian herself, and she had been inspired by Sarah's story. It was a beautiful reminder that our actions ripple outward in ways we cannot always predict. Sarah immediately offered Emma a position at the clinic, thrilled to mentor the next generation of veterinarians. The story of Sarah, Jake, and Chance spread beyond their town. A local journalist wrote an article about them that got picked up by national news. A television show did a segment on their story. Eventually, a writer contacted them about turning their experience into a book. Sarah and Jake agreed, thinking that sharing their story might inspire others or help people who had gone through similar traumas. The book was titled Second Chances, a story of courage, rescue, and love. It became quite popular, especially among readers who love true stories about overcoming adversity. Sarah and Jake donated all the proceeds from the book to organizations that supported veterans, animal welfare, and victims of violent crimes. They did not want to profit from Sarah's trauma. They just wanted the story to help others. They received letters from people all around the country. Some were from women who had survived kidnappings or assaults, thanking Sarah for showing them that recovery and happiness were possible. Some were from veterans thanking Jake for representing the service and dedication of military members. Some were from animal lovers, thanking them both for their work with rescue animals. Each letter reminded Sarah and Jake that their experience, as terrible as it had been, had meaning and purpose beyond just their own lives. Now, as we come to the end of this long story, let us think about all the important themes and lessons we have explored. We have learned about courage, both the dramatic courage of facing armed criminals and the quieter courage of helping an injured animal or choosing to love again after trauma. We have learned about heroism in its many forms, from military training to simple kindness. We have learned about the special bond between humans and animals, exemplified by Chance's loyalty and Sarah's compassion. We have learned about the importance of skills and training, whether that is medical training, military training, or basic safety awareness. We have learned that communities are stronger when people look out for each other. We have learned that bad things sometimes happen to good people, but those bad things do not have to define us or control our futures. Most importantly, we have learned that hope is powerful. When Sarah was trapped in that dark basement with no apparent way out, she did not completely give up hope. When Jake saw someone in danger, he did not hesitate to hope that he could make a difference. When Chance was injured and alone, something made him trust that the kind woman treating his wounds would help him find a better life. Hope is what connects all the best parts of this story. Hope is what makes people kind to strangers. Hope is what makes veterans continue serving their communities after their military careers end. Hope is what makes us rescue stray animals and believe they can become wonderful companions. Hope is what helps trauma survivors heal and eventually thrive. So, what should you, a fifth grader reading this story, take away from Sarah and Jake's experience? Here are the most important lessons. First, always be kind to people and animals. You never know how one small act of kindness might change someone's life. Sarah's decision to help an injured dog led to meeting the love of her life. Your kindness might not lead to something quite so dramatic, but it will definitely make the world a better place. Second, learn useful skills. Whether it is first aid, swimming, cooking, fixing things, or anything else, having skills makes you more capable of helping yourself and others. Jake's military skills allowed him to rescue Sarah. What skills might you develop that could help people someday? Third, pay attention to the world around you. Jake saved Sarah because he happened to look out his window and saw something wrong. If he had been distracted by his phone or television, he might have missed it. Being aware of your surroundings keeps you safer and allows you to help others when they need it. Fourth, do not give up hope even in difficult situations. Life will bring challenges and scary moments. You might face bullies, accidents, illness, or other problems. But if Sarah could maintain hope while trapped in a basement with criminals, You can maintain hope through whatever difficulties come your way. Fifth, animals are amazing companions who deserve our respect and care. The bond between humans and animals is ancient and special. If you have pets, treat them kindly. If you see animals in need, help them if you can, or get an adult who can help. And if you do not have pets, maybe volunteer at a shelter or support animal welfare organizations. Sixth, heroes are real and come in many forms. They might be military members like Jake, or caring professionals like Sarah, or loyal animals like Chance. They might even be regular people who make brave choices in critical moments. You have the potential to be a hero too, in your own way. Seventh, community matters. We are all connected, and we should look out for each other. Help your neighbors. Check on friends who seem sad or stressed. Stand up against bullying. Support local organizations that do good work. Small actions by many people add up to big positive changes. Eighth, bad experiences can lead to good outcomes if we respond with strength and grace. Sarah did not let her kidnapping make her bitter or fearful. Instead, she used it as a catalyst to improve her life, learn new skills, and eventually help others. When bad things happen to you, and they will sometimes, remember that how you respond matters more than what happened. Finally, love is worth it. Opening your heart to others always involves risk. Sarah could have decided after her trauma that trusting people was too dangerous. But she took the risk of loving Jake, and it brought her tremendous joy. Throughout your life, you will have opportunities to love family, love friends, love romantic partners, love pets, love your community. Take those opportunities. Yes, love can sometimes lead to pain, but it also leads to the most beautiful and meaningful experiences in life. The story of Sarah, Jake, and Chance is ultimately a story about love triumphing over fear, good overcoming evil, and hope persisting even in darkness. It is a reminder that we live in a world with both wonderful and terrible things, but the wonderful things are worth fighting for. It is a celebration of the incredible resilience of the human spirit and the precious bonds we form with each other and with animals. So, as you go about your life, remember this story. Remember that one act of kindness can change everything. Remember that courage comes in many forms. Remember that skills and awareness can save lives. Remember that animals are loyal companions who enrich our existence. Remember that community and connection matter. And most of all, remember to never give up hope, because you never know what wonderful surprises life might have waiting for you just around the corner. Just like Sarah never imagined that helping an injured dog would lead to meeting her soulmate, you never know how your choices today might shape your tomorrow. Be brave, be kind, stay aware, and keep hope alive in your heart. Those are the lessons that matter most, the lessons that Sarah, Jake, and Chance taught through their incredible experience. And who knows, maybe someday you will have your own amazing story to tell, a story about how you helped someone in need, or how someone helped you, or how you found something wonderful in an unexpected place. Life is full of possibilities and surprises. Stay open to them, stay ready for them, and when your moment comes, when you have the chance to be brave, to be kind, to make a difference, take it, because those are the moments that truly matter, the moments that turn ordinary lives into extraordinary stories worth telling.